At the beginning of episode 6, tension mounts as Tom confronts Sophie and she finally reveals the harrowing truth. That night they broke into school to take revenge from a teacher they hated. It was supposed to be a simple prank, but after a while it got out of hand and they decided to run. Suddenly they saw the security camera. To cover their tracks they looked for the tape and got it. Craig saw some kids in the camera feed and rushed to warn them. Outside they realized that Craig was not with them. Now Sophie tries to justify that back then they were just children and got really scared. Until now they could never tell it to anyone for the sake of their children. Tom realizes that Jenny might have uncovered the truth. Rachel was also trying to tell them something before she died. Tom now comes to the conclusion that Bobby might have killed Chris and Helen. He insists that Sophie must help him to get to him. Sophie calls Bobby and tells him that she knows he killed Helen. He reveals that she had kept the tape, to which Sophie says that she has got it, and the only problem left is Jenny. He admits that he has her. She asks to come over and take care of the situation, and he agrees and wants her to come alone. In the flashback after Rachel died, Jenny was going through her mother's belongings. She finds her diary and goes to visit Helen to talk about her mother. Helen fetches an old photo album and sets aside a tape that catches Jenny's eye. Jenny starts to ask questions about their past and the incident which Rachel hasn't mentioned clearly in her diary. Helen got anxious and asked her to leave immediately. While going out, Jenny stole the tape. Now she takes the tape to Chris and they start to watch it. They see the recording date and Jenny spots Rachel and her mother. As they dig deeper, they realize that the tape is from the day of a tragic fire that claimed 8 lives. Now they look for all the other people and find Craig, Bobby, and finally Sophie. Chris is furious. He thinks Sophie is a hypocrite and wants to confront her. However, Jenny denies and decides to talk to Bobby after the party that night. Chris still insists on talking to Sophie, but Jenny begs him not to. Jenny cannot find Chris after the party, so she decides to take his Vespa and heads to heaven. She didn't find Bobby and left a note for him. Still unable to find Chris, she goes to Helen and reveals that she knows everything. Helen admits it and says she told everyone that she had destroyed the tape. Jenny explains how the secret haunted her mother all her life. Jenny, overwhelmed, does not want to go home as her father, who hates Chris, has bugged her phone, and she don't know how to break the news about her mother's past. After hearing about Chris's death, she was devastated. Helen asks her if he knew about the tape and then calls Bobby. Bobby comes to Helen's home and she informs him that she wants the truth to come out. Bobby kills her and takes Jenny with him. In the present day, Sophie and Tom are driving to see Bobby. She says that after getting Jenny she will admit to the fire and wants Tom to help Josh with the kids. He agrees. Tom gets out of the car and Sophie goes to Bobby's. He buzzes her in. She discreetly opens the fire exit for Tom, allowing him to slip in. Just as she enters his apartment, he points a gun at her and wants the tape. She insists that she has just as much to lose and asks about Jenny. She goes in where she sees Jenny, who is desperate to go home. Tom quietly enters the apartment. Meanwhile, Jenny is explaining to Sophie. Tom notices Bobby with the gun. Bobby spots Tom, and after a struggle between the three, Bobby gets the gun. Tom pleads with Bobby, urging him not to kill Jenny, as she is Rachel's daughter. Bobby, overwhelmed with emotions and the weight of his actions, shoots himself in the head. Tom, overwhelmed with relief, hugs Jenny tightly. Sophie calls the police. Outside, Tom asks Sophie to not confess about the fire and Jenny agrees. She wants her to think of her children. Back at their home, Emma is taking Jenny's statement. It is still not clear who killed Chris, as Bobby didn't know about the tape then. It doesn't make any sense. Then Emma shows her the pendant from the crime scene. Tom's world turned upside down as he recognized it, but kept quiet. He then visits Sophie and asks her to confess to Chris's murder. Sophie, weighed down by guilt, admits it and tells him that night she went to get Henry. She saw Chris, who was smoking outside. He confronted her and told her about the secret. He also informed her he had the tape. She confessed to him and he recorded her voice. Feeling cornered, she forced him to give it back, and after a physical confrontation she drowned him, deleted the recording and fled. She admits she did all this to keep her family together. Tom, overwhelmed by her confession, does not want to bury any more secrets. While hugging her, he calls the police. She is taken into custody and sent to jail.